what was happening here in Detroit. But in England, some of the brothers from England and brothers from throughout the diaspora had gotten word through an African brother who was also in prison, got released, and he saw my dad, and my dad told me, make sure that they know that these white folk are holding me against my will here in England. So they got the word out in England. They started protesting there in England as well. And that was just part of the whole unity that was important, that my dad was helping to build that kind of international attention. Him returning to the United States, there was no deal made. And this is something that people need to understand. He did not make a deal with the government, and that's why he got back to the United States. It was a struggle all the way. Okay? And even after he returned, you know, that was a major challenge. He fought extradition back to North Carolina from Michigan for several years. And there were many people here in the city who supported him in that struggle against extradition, but eventually he went back there. And when he went back there, they wanted to put a ridiculous bond on him. He absolutely refused to allow even local people to post that bond, because he said, hey, I am not a criminal. I did nothing criminal, and I refuse to allow a white man with a black robe, a Ku Klux Klansman, to deny me my rights. So that was the kind of spirit, and that was the kind of fight that he was involved in, even to the return to the United States.
I want to pick up on that comment by John and remind you of Mother Mabel's comment in the film about just missing home and family, missing kin, right? The weight of exile, it's a heavy, heavy weight when you want to be home, when you want to go home and you can't. And to sustain that weight, to continue the strength and the courage during those years of exile, and not only to simply live within the culture graciously and with political discretion and wisdom, but, oh God, so big, but also to have the courage to negotiate for your own struggle among these people with whom you are living, right? To negotiate with a Fidel Castro for your people back home, right? Yes, the Cubans were dealing with their own problems with racism within the society, and they had established a line that said, we're unity, there's no black-white here. In the early days after the Cuban Revolution, that was pretty much the line. And so, no, they didn't want to deal with our nationalism, our revolutionary nationalism, right? So it's clear why there was tension at a certain point between Brother Rob and the Cuban leadership. But nevertheless, he did what he believed he had to do for his own struggle, which he knew well, better than they knew. And he stood for his position on that struggle. And I'm sure he had to do the same thing in China, right? To say, this is the truth of our struggle, right? No one outside of that struggle can tell me, can give me a line, you know, can tell me how to struggle or how to interpret what is happening to us. So there are so many things we learn from Brother Rob and Brother Mabel in terms of just courage and clarity and self-discipline, to persist and to have the faith that at some point there will be a resolution of what they needed personally, but meanwhile they would continue the struggle for us, right?
I just want to make a couple of comments. You know, we did a lot of preparatory work for Rob's return, and most of that work Rob had led because he was sending these messages back in the Crusaders and these little slips. I remember the headline of the Inner City Voice read at that day, "Welcome home, Brother Rob. America is the black man's battleground." And that was the whole front page of the Inner City Voice with Rob's picture on it. And then we had the little slogans that Rob helped create. It says, Fight the Kangaroo Court Mob, Converge on Monroe with Rob. We had all those little slogans and things in preparation for him coming home. So it was a joyous moment. I know we stayed out to the airport all day long waiting on the airplane to come, and then find out they had stopped him in London and had locked him up. So we wasted that whole day's trip, you know, in preparation for him to get here, because we was all prepared for almost anything that happened when he hit ground. But it was a glorious day. Thank you.